Of Law 517, discussing misconceptions about the Constitution I had prior to this class. Number one is things I don't understand about our system. I'm really starting to notice that while I thought I understood a lot about our system, especially as far as the laws that individuals have versus state and federal, which I'm learning a lot more about, the one thing that's getting very confusing, and I would say that I wish would have been something that the founders included, so I'm going to combine these, was the distinction of the importance of individual rights. And I understand that the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and the amendments, a lot of it, the first 10, of course, are towards the individual. And the 14th, of course, is stating about equality of rights and protection under the federal government. But it seems that the three terms, the individual, the state, and the nation, they're all very distinct, but not really defined so much as to how they interact with each other. We know that the federal is supposed to maintain and uphold the laws and guarantee the protection of the rights of the individuals and the states, and that the federal should not be able to anything not outlined in the Bill of Rights, or the Constitution, is supposed to be controlled by the state according to the 10th Amendment. Yet we rarely see that ever happen. The federal government seems to always supersede what the state and individual rights uphold. It's very strange. It seems like from what was originally written to where we're at now, that the federal government has essentially become its own entity. It no longer is, by, for, and of the people, where it used to be states that came together, for power, as far as, trying to say security, strength in numbers. We aligned for, a similar cause, which is the reason why our states united, the original 13 colonies in the first place. It makes me think of Benjamin Franklin's, wood art, which was the join or die with the snake dissected, which we see, reminds me of the original purpose and intent of the Gadsden flag. But now it seems like the federal government is just far more important than the state, far more important than individual rights. It's almost starting to seem very Romanesque, that the individual freedoms of the person, the citizen, can be suspended, and that Congress, or like we saw in the case of what led to the ultimate fall of Rome, is that all the power was consolidated into one authoritative, dictator, the Caesar. We're kind of following the same path if we continue to go down this path. So I wish that the founders would have included maybe a failsafe, but I think that they did, and a lot of people would argue it, but that's what the Second Amendment was for. And off the top of my head, while I'm sitting here, I'd have to look it up on my computer, but I specifically remember, and I think it was either James Madison or Thomas Jefferson that said that in order to remain healthy, that our government, in order for our nation to remain healthy, about every 20 years we need to have a revolution in order to ensure that we're pure. I'm paraphrasing, and I'd have to go back and find which founder specifically said that. But that's just one of those things I think I could see eventually happening, is that different from in the Second Amendment, of course, the articles, which I referenced, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15, that Congress can use its power to form militias in states. That's different. And of course, that refers to the National Guard, but the Second Amendment was specifically referring to militias, was for the individuals to be able to protect themselves against the tyranny of the government, So I think that is something that could happen. My views of appropriate method to be applied by the courts in interpreting the Constitution, I've kind of addressed that somewhat. I think that the courts try their best to maintain the original intent of the Constitution and usually try not to change the laws. But the problem with the court is, as the agendas of Congress and the executive branch shift, those two entities are who not only nominate but approve Supreme Court justices. So it just really reminds me of essentially what happened with the government in Russia, as far as when the Bolshevik Revolution happened. The state essentially consolidated all the power, and those who were in the top were able to dictate basically everything to the people. If that happens, the appropriate methods being applied by the court could be used. The Supreme Court justices' opinions could be used to basically make the Bill of Rights or individual freedoms a moot point if and when the president ever decided to declare martial law. So I think the court could give validity to certain parts of the Constitution that were meant to protect us, but it could also strike down some of our constitutional rights, as it has. I personally feel that when you look at the NSA, different surveillance schemes, collecting information on individuals, citizens, I mean, as far as Fourth Amendment rights, kind of goes into search and seizure. I mean, how much of your individual rights protected online is kind of a topic that's up in the air right now. And depending upon how the courts decide that, it could drastically change what we consider to be our civil liberties in the United States. Other things I'd like to address about the class or the materials. I just think that doing a lot of the research has really helped. It's really expanded my knowledge of the Constitution. But one thing that I also see is that it's very, in my opinion, from now, I would say that the easiest job in the government probably would have to be, if I said easy, and this is all relative because it's a very difficult job, but Congress, I think, probably has the easiest job. Identifying gaps in the laws, identifying problems that arise, social, economic. They pass laws. It's up to the president and the executive branch to enforce those laws. And the president can use executive actions to create additional laws, for all intents and purposes, that his agencies are basically going to enforce. But I would think that the probably most convoluted and difficult job would be to interpret the Constitution and law. I mean, the U.S. Supreme Court's got a tough job. The things that they do and the decisions that they make literally affect, the laws and executing them, they affect certain things, but long-term, drastic, stark, black and white, hot and cold issues are decided in the halls of the Supreme Court. The things that they decide have a long-lasting effect on our nation, and it all goes back to the base document, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. That's got to be a tough job. One of my classmates, Mark Hooper, had mentioned in one of his posts, for this week actually, he was talking about the Indiana State Religious Protection Act, where they outlawed, well, they didn't outlaw, but they struck down or said that they were not going to protect, or they legally defined marriage as between a man and a woman. And it would be hard for me to take a look at that constitutionally. I support what the state did. I think the 10th Amendment should stand in this case and let the state decide. But on the other hand, the 14th Amendment's very vague, and can you consider not giving someone equal protection or equal rights under the law, which is defined within the realm of marriage, being able to get certain insurances, health benefits, death benefits? You basically keep one group of people from maintaining or obtaining those rights because of the way that your law is written. That's such a tough thing, because it would essentially change the nature of our definition of what marriage is in this country. And the Supreme Court is arguing that, and as Mark had stated, it was argued or presented around April 2015 timeframe, and they're going over it right now. The decision's supposed to be announced, but the things that I would like to address about the materials is just that I'm really glad that there's such a deep explanation of the actual importance of the judicial branch. And I think in the narrative of our nation and the things that we talk about, we often forget how important and how heavy of a job the judicial branch has. So other than that, there's no other major issues about the materials. I just am really enjoying the class and learning about our nation. So thank you very much. Have a great day.